Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to handle some SVG files that are envelope templates. You know, how to set it up to either use the creasing tool or to do dash line cutting for the folds. So I'm going to go to File, Import, and then locate. I downloaded two different templates. One is from, well, they both came from Creative Fabrica. One of them has a PNG version, which I don't want. I want just the SVG file, because SVG is already a vector, so you don't have to worry about having it traced or whatever. It's, you know, it's ready to cut. So I'm going to click on Open. And then I'm going to, since I'm not going to make this a print and cut file, I'm just cutting, I'm going to mark the cut only option and then click on Next. And then you can see that it found two different colors, which is what's in there. The pink's a little faded here. It almost looks like it's not being seen, but it is. And because it shows right here, it's finding two colors. So that's good. Click on Apply. Now then, the one thing I found out about this when I went through all the testing was that the dash lines that come with it are not just single lines, they're little rectangles. And there's nothing that annoys me more than a dash line that's actually a rectangle. That is tedious. Just, you know, you just want a dash line cut. So basically, I'm not going to be using this, but I'll go through the process of how I would replace this particular dash line with you know, just basically either a creasing line or a line that's going to cut true dash, which is not rectangles. So over here, now with the whole thing selected, I'm going to ungroup it. So I can go to Arrange, Ungroup. And then when you do that, over on the Layers panel, it's very important to pay attention to your Layers panel, because that's where you get to control what you want the cutter to do with each single layer. So I have this overall shape, and I'm going to hide it. And or you can lock it. You notice over here, they're kind of faded out, but it shows them right here. One is the eye, in which you can hide. The other is the lock, which you can lock. Okay, so for this particular layer, and of course, if you do it up here, it's going to do it for all. So I'm just going to do it right here. I'm going to leave it showing, but I'm going to lock it, and that way I can't inadvertently select it. Now then, each of these groups happens to be one of the lines of rectangles that goes all the way around. So I'm going to lock these as well, so that I can, you know, make sure when I add my new lines, I can make sure they're in the correct locations. So to add the lines, so you have two options. One is, because this ends up being a square, you could just add a square to be the line. So down here on the Tools panel, I'm going to select the first one, which is Draw Shapes, and it's a rectangle tool. And then I'm just going to come right up here to this corner, and I'm going to just left click once, just like that. And then I'm going to drag this out until it comes down here to the bottom, and then make sure it kind of fits the width. Now, if you want to get really particular about the sizing, then what you do is temporarily you're going to hide, you know, your new square, come and turn these off so that you can select them. Well, we still want this one. Yeah, it's hidden. Yeah, we want to be able to just select this. And then this tells us what the dimensions are, 5.624 and 5.643. So if I was being very particular about this, and by the way, also, let me show you this also. On the color picker tab, we select on there, you can have, this shows you the position of this upper left corner, like where this upper left corner. So you can also make sure your square ends up to be located in the exact same position. Otherwise, when you turn this off, this shows the width and height that you also see over here. So just some information. You know, I know that some people, they're new to the software and they don't even have a sense yet of all of the different things, where to find things such as dimensions. Okay, so now then back to the Layers tab. So again, I'm going to just assume that, you know, I'm happy with the sizing of this. It, you know, it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, you know, for an envelope template. But again, if you want to do that, I showed you how to do that. Otherwise, I can come and I can select each of these groups. I'm going to hold the Shift key, and I can select each one of these that were the dash rectangle or the rectangle shapes, and I can just then hit the Delete key on my keyboard, and those are gone. So now let's come back and turn on the outer shape. And so now then you want to make sure they're assigned to what you want them to do. So I select the outer shape, and it's default cut, which is what I want. The square, however, when I select it, it's also set to cut, but I don't want it to cut out. I want it to use the creasing tool, or I want it to cut dash. Let's say I want to cut dashed. Then I would just select this option down here, solid line, click on that, and then here you can just choose whatever you want to for the dash, including custom. Okay, so that's something that is kind of handy, and I'm not sure where that custom comes from, but I can look that up later if you need to know that. I don't think it's under here. Somewhere you can enter a custom dash site. I'm used to using shortcuts a lot, so, and I definitely know how to do it there. But anyhow, so we'll worry about that later. or alternatively, I want to say a solid line and use the creasing tool. And if I want to use the creasing tool, then clicking on this option, I have this menu, and what I want it to do is fold and score. Okay. Now then, when I go to send design, okay, in this particular window, you've got these choices. Typically all artwork is what you would be sending, although if you had some extra little pieces here that you were going to cut later, or you just cut later or set aside, then you could do selected artwork only, which means you'd have to come back and select everything. This don't separate by color. That's what we don't want to do. Either whether I'm doing the dash line cut on this or I'm using a tool, I don't want to separate by color, because otherwise it ends up being two different jobs that you have to separately send to the cutter. And I want to just kind of all handle it at one time. And it will also pause. Even with this marked, it's going to pause because it knows that part of your project is going to be the creasing tool and part of it is going to be the cut. Down here, move each layer to the origin. You don't have to worry, as long as you're not sending as separate cuts, which you're not, you can say move each layer to the origin. And what it means, it takes this entire project and it's going to align it down here with this corner down here, which is called the origin. And of course, on a Siser cutter, Romeo and Juliet, this is the origin on the cutter. Most people are coming from like a Cricut or a Silhouette, and its origin is up here in the top left. But that's why on the Siser cutters, you need to make sure your tool, when you get ready to start, your tool tip is somewhere just inside the material down in this corner. Okay. All right. And so then we go ahead and click on send. And then in this window, you can see everything is aligned. And this is the reason why you wouldn't want to put your tool tip right in the tippity tip corner of your material, because otherwise there's a likelihood that if the material is just slightly crooked, it could cut off the edges of the material. By the way, I should show you one more thing with regards to that. Let's go back to send design. This down here, allow weed margin. If I mark that and I click on send, then you'll see that it's allowing for a little bit of room on each side. And that's probably how the Cricut works. For sure, that's how the Silhouettes work, that they know you don't want to inadvertently cut off your material. So they give you a little bit of room for error there. So, and that's up to you whether you want to use that or not. I come from almost 20 years of using cutters where that wasn't an option. So I'm used to being able to take responsibility for where I place my tool before I cut, so I know that it's not going to cut off the side. All right, so then over here, for the fold crease for the cutting tool, this is where you would enter, whatever speed and force you want to use for the outside cut. And then in this menu here, you would then select the fold crease, and you would put in whatever you wanted to use for the fold crease, which often you want to make it higher. Although be careful, if you make it too high, like if you try to go the maximum of 160, it's very possible the tool will be dragging so hard through your cardstock that it skews the mat. In that event, you might want to use 2 passes at a lower force so that it can't skew the mat out of place, because otherwise if it skews the mat, your cut lines are not going to end up matching up with your fold lines. Okay, but then once you have your settings made, then you go to send to cutter. And then right here, you can verify again, it's got the fold crease, it sees that, and it sees the cut tours. Make sure the prompt to change tools is marked, because you want to start off, and it will tell you it's going to start off with the creasing tool, which is the way you want it to work. You don't want it to cut first and then crease, because that can lead to cutting errors, because your outside cut's a little bit looser than on the mat. So the folding crease is and same thing if you're using a tool to draw with, or something like that. You always want that to be performed first, and then the cut to be performed last, which is how the default's going to work. And so then, and then if you for some reason change your mind, you don't want something to happen, then you can turn it off here and it won't. But otherwise, I have both of these marked, and then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click on OK, and then read the screen. Make sure crease tool is loaded. It's warning you. Make sure you're all set, right? And again, I'm going to emphasize again, make sure you have that tool tip positioned where you want it over the material, lower left corner. And then go ahead and click on OK. And now, when you click on OK, it's going to start doing, it's going to perform the creasing thing. And I have it set up over there where it's doing it. And then this is going to pop up, but wait until you hear it stop and return to the origin. Then walk over, change out the tool to the blade holder, and then when you click on OK, it's going to immediately then cut the outside. Okay, so anyway, I think that's basically, I wanted to do a different design. That's right, I wanted to show you something else. So let's delete this one, and then I'm going to import the other envelope. So let's go to envelope, and then this one doesn't have any fold lines at all. Again, I'm picking the SVG, and it has a different variety, so let's just pick one. Let's just pick this one, okay? And then I can click on, and it's not, oh, it's, let's cancel, something went wrong here. I probably picked the wrong format. File, import. Oh yeah, that's an SVG. Here we go. I mean, that was the PNG, which wants to trace it. I meant to pick the SVG version. So I click on SVG, cut only again, click on next, and then I click on apply. Now this time it has this 0106 for whatever reason, but again, I can just go to arrange, ungroup. Then I can click away, I can drag my mouse to select that and hit the delete key. Now I have the template that I want to use. And you can, one of the things, if you like, another thing I always kind of encourage people, since you know you want it to be closer to the origin, go ahead and move it. Just make sure that everything that's in there is being moved. In this case, there are no cut lines, and so we're going to have to add them. Because this is square, again, you can just use the square shape or the rectangle to come up here and click and then drag this across and drag this down, and then you're going to have your fold lines. Okay, and then I might come over to color picker and let's give it a bright color here. Just come over and give it a bright, okay, now then we can see that. Again, if I wanted that to be dashed, then over here on the layers panel, selecting that new rectangle. Oh, another thing, you can double click this and give it name. That's a good idea, especially if you have a lot of layers, is to name things so you don't get confused with what is what. So I'm going to call that one folds, right? And then here's the shape, the overall, the outside shape, which I can just call outside. Okay. Now then back to the folds. With this fold line, if I wanted to cut, using the creasing tool, then this again is where I would change that to fold score. Versus if I wanted to do dash line cutting, then I could come down here to this dash menu. Okay. Let's say that it wasn't a square shape and I was going to have to draw in the cut lines myself. So let's just move this over here. The way you would do that is come down here to this draw tool on the tools panel, left click, and then you might want to zoom in a little bit here. Let me zoom in. And then I can go over back to the tool, and then I can just left click once, just click, hold the shift key, and you can bring it over if you want to stay straight, or if you need it to go vertical or whatever, whoops, Control Z. Let's go back and try that again. I'm just going to delete that one. Let's come back again, get the tool. This only happens when you make videos, of course. Left click, hold the shift key. I'm going to come across, I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to scroll down to the next point, left click, and then come across here, left click. Okay, and then I can come back up to the top and left click. But again, you may not see close and finish. Okay, so that gave me the rectangle again. However, in some cases, that won't be the case. You'll be able to you'll just have a single line, or you'll have two lines or whatever. But I just kind of wanted to show the two ways to do it. One is if it's a closed shape that's present, a basic shape, you can do that, or you can just do lines wherever you need them. Okay. So then it's the same thing. This one's selected. I would change it to, select it in this menu, change it to fold score, and then just proceed just like you did before. Don't separate by color. Leave that marked. Move each layer to the origin. Allow a weed margin or not. It's up to you. I prefer not, but it's perfectly your freedom to do it the way you want. That's what I love about these cutters and the software, lots of freedom. Okay, and then over here you'd set your same settings that you want for your scoring versus cutting, and then send it to the cutter. So anyway, I hope this helps, and I'm always interested, that the problem with making any video or even writing any tutorial is that you can't cover all cases. And since SVG files are being designed by probably 1,000 different designers out there using probably 20 different software programs, you can't expect everything to always work exactly the same way. So that's why it's very important that when you run into a circumstance that's different from the one that you've done before and you don't know what to do, you reach out for help. And we're very happy to help, because not only it's satisfying to make people successful, but it helps reinforce the knowledge that we have, or sometimes it helps us identify a bug in the software, or just whatever, just something new and different. And we like that. That's why we volunteer our time. So anyway, again, good luck, and let me know if I can help with anything else.